Yes, welcome to everyone. I am Sciortino, and I am pleased to be here again today for our 49th episode of the updates on what's happening in Myanmar. We have started these updates, as you know, since the coup, and we have been very consistent in trying to inform the public about what is happening in Myanmar. And a lot has been happening in this more than 4 years now. Unfortunately, it's taking a very long time, and the situation of Myanmar has deteriorated, as you know, because of the recent earthquake, which was 7.7 in Myanmar and arrived to Bangkok, but much milder than the case in Myanmar, and people are still struggling to live in a situation of devastation. So without further ado, and we also know that it's not only the earthquake, but it's also the bombing that all the time is occurring has not stopped. The conflict has not stopped. So people are really in a desperate situation, but still fighting for survival. So I will give the word to Khin. As you know, she is a very well-known activist, peace activist, woman activist, and very concerned. She writes very interesting opinion piece, and we will be sharing one she recently brought about aid and how to deliver the aid to Myanmar, assuring that it doesn't end in the hands of the military. So, Khin, please take the floor. Yes.
Can you see my screen from your end?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, before I start, thank you again, Leah and SEAJunction team, for continuing with this episode, getting the update of where things are in Myanmar, Burma, and really informing our friends in the region and internationally. So it's really, I really appreciate on behalf of the people of Myanmar. So I have prepared a PowerPoint, so I will just go ahead and start sharing. Here, let me see, where do I start? Okay. You see my first slide, yeah? So like Leah already mentioned in the introduction, so basically this in this particular time, Myanmar is going through a poly crisis with one disaster after another, right? Because if you will remember, in 2023, there was Cyclone Mocha, really badly hit the western part of Myanmar in Rakhine and Khin. And then in 2024, last year, Typhoon Yagi. And of course, compared to what we saw last month, on March 28th, this devastating 7.7 magnitude of the earthquake. Compared to this one, the last 2 years, of course, is less, but there are quite similarity in terms of how the aid is managed and governed. So that's something that I will also share with you today. But before that, just to give you the quick overview, I'm sure you all saw in the international media about the March 28th, and also there are a lot of these over hundreds of aftershocks, small earthquakes being nonstop. Actually, even 2 days ago, it was still shaken up, Mandalay and Sagai, where people had to run out in the middle of the night, like 10:30 p.m. On the 27th of April, just pretty much almost a month after the big one on March 28th. And we saw some that are like 5.4, 5.6 magnitude also, earthquakes also has been happening not only in the epicenter of Sagai and the closest Mandalay, but also in some other places. The earth shifting, it has been quite obvious, which has traumatized, I would say, the large number of population in Myanmar, on top of their lives and livelihood being uprooted for a month in those quick hit areas. But you see, like, this is really another wound torn open in this country that is already bleeding from the military's violence across the country for the last 4 years, yeah? And according to the Democratic Voice of Burma, which is different, this data you see are different than what the military has informed to the world, where most of the international actors or the UN agencies, use is different, because the local documentations on the ground told us that more than 4,400 people actually died from this quake, and more than 11,000 were affected, and over 190,000 were impacted, with 50,000 homes and buildings being destroyed. That you will see, like, the international media really caught the historical, like, cultural heritage buildings, like the pagodas, being collapsed, for example. You can see some of the buildings here, as you can already look at. There is this white building, of course, is the symbol of the Buddhism, the Buddhist pagoda. But then the next to it is the yellow building, which is the mosque for the Islam community, that has been there for, some even like 100 years or quite old. They collapsed in the time when the Islam community were having their prayer time, right? Because it's a Ramadan. But these buildings now totally collapsed with all of these men who were in the prayer session. So there are certain communities, the impact will be different, also including their cultural root and cultural heritage and their identity, because, like, you see the pagoda will be the pagoda that you see on my screen. You will see in the recovery process, where the international community will donate for the recovery, rehabilitation. These Buddhist pagodas will be given top priority, because that's how the military thinks of this discrimination towards the minority. So, like, the Muslim community, for example, their mosques were destroyed, but they never got a chance to renovate all the law in the country. So they are not allowed to build a new one or rebuild or renovate the old one. So now the old ones, historical heritage, been collapsed. I can imagine that if not all, some of them will not be allowed to build a new one. So that's one thing to look into, the post-quake recovery, for those who are looking into what could be done or what should be done in a quick recovery process in Myanmar with this such devastation. If I may actually bring you to where things are now with the aid, I want to particularly focus today on how the military junta has responded. Unlike the previous regime in 2008, during the time of Cyclone Nagis, this military junta chief, Mayor Lai, immediately called for the international aid. But the thing is, we don't see any of those troops, his military troops, on the ground, rescuing the people, saving the people's lives, helping the people. We don't see them using the helicopters, something that you would normally see in other countries, such as even in neighboring countries like Thailand or Cambodia or Philippines. You will see such national response rescue missions where the country's machineries, including the planes or the jet helicopters, will be used, right? But you don't see any of that in Myanmar. That's how the military how they respond. So in my assessment and opinion is that this military, first, don't have the capacity. Second, most importantly, is they don't have the goodwill for the people's well-being. And what they know the best is always how to destroy their life, but not to save the life. So I think that is something to really look into. But again, you see the junta call for the immediate aid. But of course, also one thing, they call for the aid, international assistance, is because Naypyidaw is also hardly hit. One of the most severely hit is including the Naypyidaw, yeah? So that is where all these like parliament, president's houses, ministries, buildings, they are all there. And that, a lot of destruction and also loss of people's lives there. So we can kind of have the rationale why the Mayor Line will also call for the aid immediately, because their place is also severely destructed. But what we're seeing on one side, even though we don't see the military troops helping people cleaning the rubbles, they are cleaning the collapsed pagodas. You see them cleaning the pagodas that are collapsed, but you don't see them helping or saving the people. But what you also see them is that they are continuing with the violent attacks on the people, including the forced conscription. I mean, as most of you follow Myanmar closely will remember, since February 2024, this military started forcibly conscripting men from between 18 to 35 years old to join the military, including the women are now being conscripted because they are losing the battle against the democratic resistance on the ground. They have the heavy power by airstrikes, but on the ground, they are losing so much by manpower, and also their soldiers' morale, but also they are losing their territorial control, to the point that I think I probably gave you the update in my last session that almost more or less two-thirds of the country territory is under the effective control of the National Unity Government and the ethnic resistance organizations and other alliances. So basically, for the military, you see them, they need to actually boost up their manpower, boost up their manpower. So they are doing a lot of that. And the point here is that I want to make is, just right after the earthquake, even in Mandalay City, where the earthquake destroyed the most, there were conscription in the middle of the night. So that is one reason that local people, local volunteers who go out to help out their neighbors or communities, or across from one city to one town to the other, to the earthquake affected areas to help out, they are very worried of their security. They could be arrested for doing things that they don't get the permission from the military, because in many areas that is required. But at the same time, they could be just picked up and arrested, but also not only that, they could be actually sent to the military camps to serve this military and fight for them and use as human shields, right? So in that case, it's also, this is a new element. That's something that we didn't see during the past most severe natural disaster, which was in 2008, the Cyclone Nagis, yeah? The junta actually announced that they have, up to April 24, they announced certain numbers of the cash donation from the international regional well-wishers that comes from, in kind, as well as in cash, including the, Myanmar Jet or Korean won or Indian rupees or Singaporean dollar. But one thing that the military announced, that they have already transferred this money to the National Disaster Management Committee under the junta control natural disaster. No, I think it's called the Social Welfare Department. So basically, you see that they are announcing on their social media about the assistance that they have received from the international community. But then, like, when you listen to the people on the ground, many people are saying that they have not received the international aid. Many areas are receiving the aid because of the local community-led responses. I'll talk to you more about it. But then there are eyewitnesses who are reporting that there are stockpiles of international aid in the warehouses in Naypyidaw and Yangon. So that's something to for us to look into, yeah? So the other issue that I want to bring to your attention is the exchange rate. Because this military use different exchange rate. I mean, if you actually Google it and like just search it of the Myanmar exchange rate to the US dollar, you will see the different number. Locally, there are like at least three other different exchange rate this military use. Yeah. So international agencies, UN agencies, they have to whatever the rate is determined by the military. That is what they have to use in the country, or that's what they will be getting their the money out from the banks. Yeah, but something for us here to know is this is something one of my colleague, one of my dear sister who understand the system calculated this for me. So I'm not going to read everything to you for now, but the military is using this Myanmar jet 3,700 Myanmar jet for $1 in their controlled Central Bank of Myanmar, as well as the private banks such as the Kamposa, KBC, or AIA banks. Yeah, that's where many of the international agencies will also have to take the money out from them. So here, in addition to the cash donation, the junta is receiving the international government's donation, which added up to at least to the public information available to us is the junta has received $33.4 million. That is a direct donation from different governments, yeah, through the UN OCHA. So if you calculate with the 3,700 Myanmar jet bar $1, basically at the end, you are seeing minimum of 600 Myanmar jet bar $, that this military is earning. They are actually profiting from that exchange rate, yeah? So if you add up all together, for the amount of 33.4 million, basically the US about 4.67 million $, is going into the pockets of the military because of that exchange rate. Yeah. So I think that's something for us to look into when we talk about the how the aid governance is, how the loopholes and discrepancy that will allow the junta to exploit it, no? And this is not new. This is not new. For those of you who might think like, who didn't know the previous history might think like this is a bit weird. There are like 4 different exchange rates. Well, those of you who also know Myanmar know very well that is not strange and new at all. Because back in under the Than Shwe regime time, before 2010, the US dollar exchange rate is where they get the previous military regime also get lots of money. They profit out of the exchange rate that time as well. So it's not something new. But I think it's good for me to bring it back to you now, is because it's important as we as a Myanmar civil society, along with our regional international civil society together, are calling on the aid donors to ensure the aid is not manipulated, not obstructed, and not weaponized by this junta. And transparency and accountability is a key in this whole process to ensure that. So that's why I'm bringing this to you today. If I may go very quickly. you see all these stockpiles of aid in the warehouses. There are other forms of restrictions imposed in the junta's weaponization of aid, such as like, not giving the permission from Naypyidaw, but not getting the permission when groups go down to the ground. There are intimidation and arrest of the local humanitarians or the local frontline responders. There are also withholdings that aid, but also like there are money extortion in some cases. And there is also unfair distribution. It's something that we see also depending on the earthquake hit communities, social and economic status. The aid that they receive is different than the very impoverished or ordinary people who are also severely hit by the junta. But the aid distribution between the two communities is different. Even in Naypyidaw, I learned from one of my very dear sister who actually, get the ground information. Is like even in Naypyidaw, among the ministerial staffs under the junta's control, are not really getting as much as that they should. After the, especially the international aid, tons of loads of aid their first destination is Naypyidaw. So they should be getting that, right? But no, they're not getting that. But also something for us to remember is this is the country with the already devastating dire internally displaced people humanitarian aid crisis, because for the last 4 years with all these non-stop airstrikes, Myanmar's 3.5 million population become the most vulnerable, fleeing from the war, fleeing from the military's airstrikes and artillery attacks, and yet there are no international aid. And we know that, of course, because you don't see the international agencies able to go travel and distribute, but it really is the local responders, right? But now we can even see in the post-quake time, when the local responders go out, they've been specifically instructed by the local authorities not to give their quick donation to those who fled from the armed conflict or the war or from the airstrikes. So this is something for us to also look into when we talk about the humanitarian, the quick the aid weaponization, yeah? So let's look at the military-made disaster. We talk about the earthquake destroyed more than 50,000 homes and their cultural heritage. But since the coup, at least over 110,000 civilian homes been destroyed by this military, including the arson, including the airstrikes. That includes the homes, villages, the entire villages, but as well as the clinics and schools and all of this, yeah. So even in January 2025 alone, if you look at the data, 588 civilian homes in January 2025 alone were destroyed in Magui, Sagai, Mandalay, Karenni, Tanindai, and Bago because of the airstrikes. And if I can just give you this share with you a few photos. I'm sharing these photos with you today is because basically I know that you can see the earthquake photos all over the world now. You can just click once, you will see them. But you don't really see many of the photos of the civilians who are being bombed and killed. So since March 28th, the junta's airstrikes, this number is more than 546. It is counted by bombs, the bombs that they drop, yeah? The bombs that they drop, killing over 210 civilians and injuring 347, including many women and children. And if you look at the areas, it's pretty much across the country. I'll show you the map after this. But what you look at also is that even in the 3 days from April 18 to 20, when the military chief Min Aung Hlaing met with the ASEAN chair, Malaysia Prime Minister Anwar in Bangkok, Thailand, in those 3 days of that meeting, between before and after, the Hunter airstrikes already killed 55 civilians, injured 90 others. And this is happening in the time when there is so-called ceasefire. The legitimate government, National Unity Government, already enacted on their ceasefire, and the ethnic alliances also act on the ceasefire. The military following them also declare that they also have the ceasefire. But even on the day of April 2nd, when they announced the ceasefire, they were still bombing on the ground. Yeah. So today is actually the last day. They extended one more week from April 20 to April 22nd. So today is the last day. But then even in the almost 1 month, you see how many area bombings that they already carried out. So I can imagine of like, starting from even today and onward. Yeah. So the next, I'm losing my command for the next, well, why am I, okay, sorry. So just to share with you, this is in Mandalay. There's 3 consecutive bombings, killing 37 civilians, including children, injured more than 50. The same. That's the Beijing township in Mandalay. And as you know, Mandalay is the most severely hit. And yet these bombings are killing the people. And this is in Zagai, also the epicenter, and also in Khin state, they were killing a lot more also there in those areas. And this is in Zagai, also killing more, even as small young children. And this is the Yachang in Tanindai, which is the south, border with Thailand. Also, there were airstrikes. And also more Zagai on April 20th. And this is in Mon State, also bordering with Thailand side. And that is also another, we're seeing also the airstrikes come in. And if you count even on April 19th alone, they were bombing in 3, 4, 5 different areas on the same day. And this is in Rakhine State, also killing and also injuring. And in Rakhine State, the Rakhine State saw over 500 ground attacks also in this particular time that I'm sharing with you. And this is in Magui, bordering with Zagai, and you see that also there are bombings there. You will see in northern Shan State, there were at least 23 poison gas bombs were dropped in between April 21 and 24. This is another Zagai. And in fact, like if you look at the Zagai, this particular case, they bombed the mobile clinic. They bombed the local Buddhist monastery where the mobile medical team was giving the medical care to the earthquake-affected communities there. So if you look at this map, you will see how this is pretty much, we have 14, we have 7 divisions, seven states plus the Naypyidaw Council. So except in Yangon and Naypyidaw, you're seeing all the other places where the bombings. This map is not even the updated. The one that I'm showing you is already outdated one. So now my last slide that I want to share with you. You will, as SEAJunction will share with you, you will see my op-ed article on how I see the community-based people-to-people response is the only answer to really to respond effectively on the ground. I'm not saying that as a theory. I'm saying that based on the experience of myself and my colleagues who are involved in the ground operations. As soon as the earthquake happened, in 1 or 2 hours time, in a few hours time, National Unity Government also held immediate emergency meeting. They reactivated local communities, local committees that they have formed since the government time under Aung San Suu Kyi. And they were also having the medical services as well as the emergency relief like that. Even in the cities like Mandalay, they are able to do, of course, quietly, otherwise the hunter will arrest and who knows what next, right? And we all know what's next after being arrested. But also in the beyond towns and cities areas, there are local communities who are working together with their civil society partners, both in the country and outside the country. They are the one who mobilized and who did their survey and need assessment, immediate response plan, relief delivery, including looking into the, the first phase of the recovery and what is in beyond. And there's also really really powerful, very good fundraising efforts are happening, not only by the civil society on the ground, but also by the diaspora community across the globe. They have been mobilizing funds so that the people on the ground can actually do this life-saving and emergency relief work. At the same time, we are also trying to get our messages out to the world with this advocacy to ensure that the donors also do their part to ensure that this military, that they don't allow this military to weaponize the aid for their political reason, for their political gain, including, there is a high risk of their aid being used as a bargaining chip in exchange of votes as the military is planning to hold the election. Imagine, right after the earthquake, in 2 or 3 days, probably in a few days' time, they announced that they will hold the election. They announced it a few months ago already, yeah? But they are announcing again, right aftermath of the earthquake. I mean, imagine of what this military is thinking, no? So it's important that international community also put in place of the measures, the mechanisms to monitor and really make it transparent and accountable to the people of Myanmar. I think that's where, Leah, I would just end here for any questions and comments and anything that I can respond. Thank you. I'll just stop here now.
Yes, thank you very much. And indeed, it's quite sobering to see the images and to be reminded of the situation on the ground in Myanmar. We have already a number of questions that were shared here in the group. Some concern more the international political scene. We have seen a number of movements from Malaysia, Thailand, China, so some refer to that. But I will follow first with the question that concern the earthquake, just to follow. There are a lot of international and local actors at the moment involved in relief activities. Who is coordinating this activity? What is the NUG doing? I think that is one question related to the earthquake in particular. Maybe you can answer first this, and then we go to the more general question.
Sure. There are very strong local coordination mechanisms. The only thing is, except how the NUG coordination mechanism is, which they made it public disclosure to the international community. You can also check on their Facebook and pages. Except for the NUG, I won't be able to share publicly about their local coordination mechanisms, is because it's very dangerous. As I was saying, the safety of the local frontline humanitarian responder is it's the top priority for us to ensure that the aid reach to the most needy people, which in areas where the international aid won't be able to reach, particularly. But also, the local humanitarian actors are also bringing the aid or doing this relief missions in the areas also under the full control of the military, in which they have even other security risks, such as conscription, as I was telling you. And if anybody, especially the medical professionals, if they are suspected by the hunters authorities as being a part of the democracy movement, they can be arrested, tortured, anything can happen. So yeah, I'm sorry, I won't be able to make it public or what kind of coordination mechanisms, but you can actually like those of you you know, who actually also have communication with the groups on the ground can also learn. But the coordination mechanisms are, I would say, is quite fluid. Also because one thing is the Myanmar civil society has been very vibrant, no? It's very strong. Their resilience very strong. They have dealt with many, you know, kinds of disaster, including the military man-made disaster. So they have a local knowledge and wisdom and the system how to actually do these things. So you will see, for example, the collaboration between the local volunteers who will work with the organizations that are not registered under the military junta. You see, cannot, right? Cannot, because of that security. They are not registered under the junta. But then they need to be very careful. So if they are going to go for the mobile clinic or, you know, like a distribution of the aid, you know, like, so everything is with this security limitation behind them. Who's following them? Who's getting the information about them, right? Because on April 5th, the junta issued a policy saying that those who are from outside the earthquake hit areas can only go in to help only if they have the permission. But not only that, they have to work with the local groups in the earthquake affected areas that are approved by the junta. So, I mean, this policy is not 100% in compliance or enforcement in every way, of course. It depends on where. It depends on, like, you know, in whose area, which local authorities are willing to take the aid, no matter who come, because they need it for their community, they need it for their townships, no? So it depends. But for our local humanitarian actors, they have to be very smart in understanding of this nuances and complexity and the risk. And they don't have the international organizations behind them, you know, not like the UNDP, who will go probably, like, you know, distribute this and that here and there, but then not necessarily, like, you know, being from the community or a part of the community. And then there are some of the gaps. There are a lot of gaps also are being left behind after the big INGOs. Interesting, if you look at some of the temporary sites for the earthquake survivors, you will see also, like, you know, it's interesting for me to see that on the UN agency social media, they use the photos of the, like, a tent, makeshift kind of tent, where the people are basically living temporarily with nothing around them, probably with the heavy rain that they experienced in the last 2 weeks. There is also the water flooding underneath them, for example. But then you will see the UN agencies actually using those local donation received photos in their posting. So the question is, like, where are the international relief tents? Where are the international logos? I mean, there are some areas where you can see them, but for the majority impacted communities, you don't see that. So there are some of these questions need to be asked, you know, just for the sake of our people, not to make things worse, but to make things better. Yeah, thank you. You're on mute, Leah.
Sorry, I always forget, but okay. So then we have again some questions related to the earthquake and some relate to the earthquake in relation to regional diplomacy. So the first is from one of our participants. She thank you for your update and bravery. How can individuals and groups who care in Bangkok be of assistance to the people of Myanmar? So this is really for concrete suggestion on your side. And then the other one are more on the diplomacy part. There are news that indeed the earthquake is boosting the junta international presence, as can be seen in the recent invitation to BIMSTEC, on Malaysia Summit, and the talk of the Malaysian PM So what is your opinion about that? And that links to another question, that is, what do you think Anwar Ibrahim should do and should not do, that I am adding, because there are things that he should not do about that. So maybe we can start. Oh, but there is one more also related to the earthquake. Have the three SAC ministries moved to Yangon from Naypyidaw as was announced? Yeah.
So first question, thank you so much for the question also. So there is already people-to-people solidarity approach from the Thai civil society, academics, institutions, the students, university students. They are already showing, no, like for example, like you can even reach out to like Chiang Mai University, Mephalong University, who are doing this people-to-people response, people-to-people response with the solidarity fundraising, even like 2 days ago, 2 days ago on the first month of the quake, the Chiang Mai University, there were also like fundraising events, where the both sides of the countries, students, like actually working together, no? It's really like really encouraging for me to see that people-to-people solidarity response, because it is, like I said, it is the only way. So if you are willing and if you are interested in, I can actually share with you some of the contacts if you are not already connected yet. So I would just drop my my Facebook. You can also drop me a message on the Facebook. I can actually help you connect to those. So thank you so much for that. Yeah. The next question. The next question is on the ASEAN. So just 1 second, please.
Yeah, while we lost Khin Omar, I should mention, Khin, I take this occasion to mention that actually the event 2 days ago, in which were also shown some photography, is related to an exhibition that will start at SEAJunction, actually at the low floor of BSCC, on the disaster. It's a fundraising photo exhibition. It will start on the 6th for 2 weeks. It is together with a group of photographer and citizen photographer from Myanmar, which is the same group which held the fundraising event in Chiang Mai 2 days ago. So I will, yeah, exactly. This is the poster of the exhibition. We are contributing, basically we are giving all the cost of the exhibition space, staff, design, etc., pro bono to this Myanmar group. There are booklets, postcards, and everything, and all the profit will go directly to this group, people to people, like Khin Omar say. So we are collaborating, and this is a reliable group, and will go for medical, mostly for medical services and supply. So please do come from 6 to 18 of May to the first floor of BACC. Okay, Khin, you can go back again. I took the occasion of your disappearance.
That's great. That's great. I'm glad you mentioned it. Yeah. So with regards to how the hunter, well, I mean, like
ASEAN, yeah.
the ASEAN, yes. Thank you, thank you. So I mean, yes, you see how the ASEAN also see the earthquake as an entry point or an opportunity to move up with their 5-point consensus agenda, right? Which is, of course, understandable. I think that the challenge is many were looking into the post-earthquake, comparing with tsunami in Aceh. So it's sort of like, like a humanitarian crisis from the natural disaster can be utilized as if it could be utilized for a political dialogue, for a compromise or negotiated solution to the conflict. I had to keep telling and explaining those who I had communication with, it's very different. What tsunami and Aceh, between the Aceh resistance movement and Jakarta central government, and what the Myanmar military and the democratic resistance in Myanmar is very different. The earthquake is also very different from tsunami, where the earthquake is actually impacted all many different areas, right? But again, the challenge that I see for the ASEAN is they won't be, if they continue with that kind of approach, they won't be able to see the result that they want to see, yeah, because they are still ignoring the very root cause of this poly-crisis in Myanmar, which is the Myanmar military. I keep saying that again and again. I know people might be tired of hearing of me keep saying that, but I need to say that because unless we address the root cause, the Myanmar military, we won't be able to get a solution that can be sustainable or can bring out any good result. So now the ASEAN, as the chair of the ASEAN, Malaysia, Anwar, as you all saw, met May Online, the commander-in-chief in Bangkok. The question is, why is he meeting him in Bangkok instead of Kuala Lumpur, right? Some people are even like just saying that, because Myanmar people are very upset, right? There's like he was meeting with May Online. But at the same time, he made a whatever the judgment. So he actually met with the prime minister of the military Myanmar, the prime minister of Myanmar's legitimate government, national unity government. So he made it public as well. So it was good, actually. I mean, people like us as a civil society, we welcome, because we have been calling on the ASEAN for the last 3-4 years to engage with the legitimate stakeholders of the country formally and officially, but they have never listened to us, right? But okay, this is just one meeting, yeah, just one meeting. But then what's next? So I think the challenge now for us is to see how Prime Minister Anwar will actually re-strategize. I would use the word re-strategize because he should be re-strategizing, in my opinion. Because for him, he might be thinking that after the earthquake, he might be thinking that he will be able to convince the junta to stop the violence or the airstrikes, which they call for it, right? But now, as I said, even in the meeting that he was having with him in Bangkok, there were airstrikes killing the people. So now, ASEAN, in my opinion, is stuck. But can they get out of that stalemate? I think so. And this is something that we have been telling. And I hope that Prime Minister Anwar will look into this and re-strategize. But his re-strategizing can only become practically applicable only if he will get into the meeting with the legitimate stakeholders of Myanmar, like NUG, to really discuss substantively how to go beyond the 5-point consensus. The reality is, yes, we know that they will keep the 5-point consensus because this is the only thing ASEAN has to deal with Myanmar. But everybody knows also at the same time that 5-point consensus has failed and is not workable anymore. For the time has already proved again and again. So I think now is the time before the summit next month, which is on the 26th, 27th May, I think. Prime Minister Anwar should be holding another substantial meeting with NUG, EROs, and UCC to really discuss the roadmap, how to actually stop the violence, how to get the aid to the people, to the areas. I mean, look at even where the Malaysia Army's mobile hospital. that hospital can only open in the area and are watched by the Myanmar military. I mean, imagine, how can we actually get that people go to get that service with the confidence that they will feel like they don't have to be afraid of the soldiers, or they don't have to be worried when they get back home, no? So how do we ensure that people's security, even if Malaysia is able to come in as rescue team and come in with this kind of like a mobile hospital, just one, right? But I think the action with the goodwill has already proven by themselves that without bypassing the military junta, the aid is not going to get to the people. But then, are there solutions? Like I said, there are solutions. The solutions are not there on paper. The solutions are tested and proved to be effective already. The aid reaching to the people in need. So what Anwar needs to do is to have a very frank and very pragmatic conversation, I would say, to get into those solutions before the summit. I think that is something that I would propose him, because time is not waiting for him either, right? His chairmanship is only next few months only. And he wants to get into the recovery, right? But how can he get into the recovery when he's not even able to address the relief phase in the way how it needed, how it is needed as what it is needed. So I would say this is where my proposal to the ASEAN. I think the key thing that we all need to not only watch, but we need to get our message out to Prime Minister Anwar and the whole ASEAN is, let's make sure that you don't bring in Myanmar into the ASEAN summit in KL to represent Myanmar sovereign state, because he is not the legitimate leader of Myanmar, that he cannot represent Myanmar in ASEAN summit. Neither him nor his foreign minister, they cannot. And this is something Prime Minister Anwar need to keep the ASEAN's decision intact, to keep telling the junta that they must comply with the 5-point consensus and the other calls from the ASEAN, particularly stop the violence. But at the same time, they cannot be, the ASEAN cannot be given the incentives, because this military will not care for the incentives. They will actually manipulate and utilize it for their own gain, as we see time and again. Yeah. You are on mute again.
Yeah, I hope you have a way to communicate with Anwar directly or through some other channel, because it's very important that he listen to you as a representative of Myanmar civil society. I am going to the last two questions very, very quick. One concern Lasho. As you know, it's been transferred to SEAJunction, the SAC, because of the Chinese intervention. So what is your comment? Unfortunately, needs to be very brief. The other one, I was reading, actually, this is my own question. I was reading about the fact that many of the buildings are, I mean, we are talking about building of multiple floors which are destroyed, and those require quite heavy equipment. And then the challenge is indeed how to ensure that equipment reach Myanmar and is used there, and that is more difficult to do people to people. So meaning people to people often is smaller things, but we are talking about rebuilding. I mean, first demolition and then rebuilding, and well, it's not sure the junta will do so. Then how to go around this one? I think that is the second question, and there was one last one again to answer very quickly. Some are talking of the possibility of EROs agreeing to cease fire with the junta, which would expose the dry zone. What do you think about that? Yes, these are the last three questions. You have 5 minutes.
I can start with the last question. I mean, is there a possibility of ceasefire? The ceasefire is always possible, right? Because, I mean, in my observation, between the two parties in fighting on the ground, the ceasefire is always right on their hand, at the tip of their fingers, depending on how they see, how they assess their situation, and they might use it from time to time. It goes to both sides, right? So, but in order for the ceasefire, for the EROs to get the aid to the central areas, it's hard to say. I don't want to get into that, to be very honest, because the way that I see in the last month since the earthquake, there are the ethnic resistance organizations, the EROs, and also the NUG, the PDFs. They are gaining more and more control on the ground. They are seizing more military bases, for example. So the question now is it possible for from the ethnic areas to get into the central dry zone? Of course, very possible. It's not only possible, it is happening, right? I mean, you see the people moving, you see the things moving, you see the materials being moved in. So how can those get there? But the challenge is the need and what they can bring in the short time, because the transportation is also a major challenge, isn't it? So the transportation is a challenge. The military hunters troops blocking roads is another challenge. The airstrikes, another challenge. So what is possible from the resistance movement, including the EROs? There are possibilities. I can see that. However, it goes how much of that possibility, how much of that feasibility for the ground also depends on how much of this military hunters attacks or the blocking can be minimized, if not stopped, no? So I think we cannot just only rely, if the EROs will do the ceasefire, if they think that they can do that, they can do, well, that is also their choice, and they will have to make that judgment and decision with that good thinking. However, how much they can go is not only them, right? Because it doesn't depend on them only. So that's one thing.
Last show.
What is the next one?
Last show.
Oh, last show. How much of the China thing, right? You know, like China, it's very interesting how China aggression in the Myanmar sovereign state territory has come to be much more aggressive. That you see the China presence in Lashio. Also, of course, the whole year round last year, being putting the pressure on the EROs, right? So we are seeing that resistance movement, or those who were able to take over the Northern Command, Northeastern Command, now had to let go, right? They had to let go of Lashio, right? But there are things, I can only say that there are certain things on the ground is beyond some of our understanding, because again, it is the whole military issue. So I won't be able to comprehend. I won't be able to explain in more comprehensive way, but some of the things that we see is not really what it is. That's something that I want to say. Yes, you see the MNDAA gave up the Lashio, but it is Lashio. But there are other areas around Lashio where the resistance still have control. So we have to be kind of like keep watching, and also keep seeing, not only like watching of where things are, but also we need to be able to get the message to the world that China cannot do it, regardless of how the EROs are being imposed of such kind of severe pressure or not. China cannot do it. So who's going to talk to the China? I think that is where we need also help. And this is something Prime Minister Anwar should be doing. Prime Minister Anwar should be talking to Beijing and talk to Beijing. Hey, look, this is our members. Like what it is Myanmar is a member state of the ASEAN. You just cannot cross over with your security and military to do things like that. Well, will he have that courage to do that? Probably not, right? But hey, I think I will say what needs to be said, because somebody has to talk about China aggression must be stopped. And this is something we have to also keep bringing to the United Nations platform, including to the Security Council members. They cannot just keep silent about China, like physically bringing their aggression into Myanmar. Not like that. So I will just end this China issue here. But please don't give up hope, or please don't lose the hope with the northern part. Is because for example, the Kachin independent organizations are gaining more and more control over the territories, and you will see there are more and more coordination among the different allies, different forces. So losing La Show at this point is really heartbreaking, because it is what do you call? It is a big sacrifice, like fought by all those resistance fighters on the ground, especially the young generations, right? So I can understand how also the young generation must be feeling now for having to let go of this. But I think we should not just see this as the end of the game, because there are many more other areas that we need to look into in the comprehensive way. So yeah, and I know there is one last question, or did I answer that already?
Well, it was partly answered. I think was about the equipment, the very large equipment.
Oh yeah, yes, you're right. You're right. We discussed that too for the recovery phase. How much of that people-to-people approach can actually address that, right? Because you need the big missionaries, you need the big money, where the civil society, people-to-people fundraising cannot cover, no? But that is where ASEAN can also look into how they can actually convince this military junta. Without the military junta, like looking into this matter together, I mean like together of this bigger picture of the politics, there's no way that they can recover. I've been asked by somebody, I forgot who, in one of the panel, if the reconstruction of the pagodas and cultural heritage, how are we going to do? I think in one of the media interview, and I told to that journalist, let's not get into the recovery stage, looking into the reconstruction of the pagodas. To me, to many of us, all of us, what is more important is saving the people's lives. And also saving the people's lives doesn't mean not only, with the earthquake, right? But now we have the whole rainy season, yeah? It's an early rainy season already. There is a worry about the potential outbreak of the cholera, because people don't have the house. They are staying in the public area, in the monasteries, like we are supporting, for example, makeshift or the temporary, what do you call them? Temporary toilets, right? There are a lot of other issues where the gender-based violence can increase because women now don't have privacy anymore. You see, and there are many other issues, and there can be many other natural disasters that might come along with the rainy season. Okay, and communicable diseases, for example, waterborne diseases. So now we have to focus. I will say that let's not get into the reconstruction of the buildings per se, of those, like a pagoda or such. Yes, people need the house. People need a place where they can stay under the roof.
What's the concern?
That's where we need to look into. Yes, we will need some missionaries, but these are the things that we need also for the ASEAN. That's why I'm saying like ASEAN needs to talk to the other stakeholders to really look into like what is really possible. But I think the most important thing is how do we prevent the potential communicable diseases outbreak? How do we prevent the more sexual violence coming up? How do we prevent, all of the others? How do we ensure the Islamic community who are perhaps not able to have the same level of access to assistance because of their religious identity that can be seen differently from the majority Buddhist, that they've been discriminated for a long time too, right? So we need to get more comprehensively into the recovery of the relief in the first phase of the recovery of the people, the trauma. People are completely traumatized. How are we going to help with the trauma? That can be done also online. So I think we need to look into more of that holistically rather than getting into the, like a reconstruction of the big buildings, which can actually fall in favor of the military's business cronies. Trust me, they have done that before. They are ready to grab the land of the peoples whose houses that they are perhaps by now already looking into grabbing their recovery aid from the international community, build their another high rise and use and manipulate and corrupt those money also. So we need to be very careful, looking deep down and coming up with more strategic, calculated plan. And I think the first thing is ASEAN needs to talk to the NUG in the collaborative way as soon as possible.
Well, it's good to see you still have hope in ASEAN, as some of us have lost, but this is why you are a positive, a very positive activist.
Yeah, but can I say very last point, Leah? I think I'm not, I mean, you know me well. I honestly don't have confidence in ASEAN at all. But regardless, we still need to deal with the ASEAN because the whole world basically throw the ball of Myanmar into the basket of the ASEAN. But now, just like what happened with the cyclone Nargis, now we need to see actually what is the UN's role in this? Because recovery is compared to cyclone Nargis, this is way much bigger. And ASEAN alone cannot do that either. Trust me, right? I mean, we all know where the ASEAN's capacity is, where the ASEAN's AHA Center's capacity is, right? So I think we need that mechanism, the new mechanism that includes the UN, but that needs to be properly designed with the local stakeholders who understand the ground, who know the both political, economic, social, cultural complexities and the needs to address on the ground. Yeah.
I think it's very interesting, the comparison to Nargis, because as you know, the World Bank was heavily involved in Nargis beyond the scene, but also was a different historical moment, which could lead to the openness of Myanmar at the time, a strategy which now I don't think that is going to be. On the contrary, there is the risk of reinforcing the junta. So indeed, people have to operate with a lot of strategic and knowledge. And indeed, that we can trust a local organization to do so better than the one jumping in without knowing with the complexities on the ground. So
yes,
a lot of work.
Last point, I would say that Prime Minister Anwar having Thaksin as the advisor for Myanmar really needs to convince also former Prime Minister of Thailand, Thaksin, to actually work with the current Thai government to allow the cross-border aid. Honestly, I mean, seriously, if Prime Minister Anwar want to have a real pragmatic way of addressing is to have Thailand on board, to have this border open, because on the other side of Thailand, Myanmar's Karenni, Mon are the ones who are governing and administering their ethnic regions, with their governance structures, administration, and service provision. So I think there is a way already. It's just a matter of political will that Prime Minister Anwar needs to convince Thai government to allow that happen. Once that happens, we will see progress immediately.
Okay, let's hope this optimistic view of the willingness of Thailand to collaborate on this rather than affiliating with the junta indeed is the strategy that Thailand will choose. I sincerely hope so. I will conclude this update with another announcement. I think we are also launching, we have already carried out for 3 years a small grant program, which was focusing on first on COVID and then later on the crisis in Southeast Asia. But this year, because of the situation in Myanmar, the focus of the small grant program will be only for Myanmar and only for groups that are located in the areas that have been earthquake stricken. So it's a special small grant program. It's not big amount. It's not for immediate emergency relief. It takes time to receive proposals, select the proposal, as well as grant the funds. So it's more for the resilience and the recovery phase, the late response when normally funding start to go down, the enthusiasm kind of wave off. That is the moment we will. So again, I stress it's not for quick response. It's more a long term. It's supposed to be very small amount, but still can make a difference in the condition. So this year, with the permission of our partner, CMB, we are basically focusing only on earthquake-struck Myanmar and only on the areas. So the groups that can participate are the ones that are based in the location that have been affected. We will soon announce with more information, but I wanted already to signal because I think will be important to keep an eye on these activities, and we will open up to people, other people that can donate to us, to channel, not really donate to us, but they can contribute, and we can channel more through this already proven due diligence process of giving small, again, a very small grants, $1,500, $2,000 per group. But last year we gave it to more than 60 groups all over Southeast Asia. This year we may be able to give to 40 or something groups working in Myanmar, and depends again on external contribution that we can match with the funds that we already have. So this is a final announcement. I want to conclude with thanking Khin Ohmar again for being with us, and we have already fixed the date for the next event, which will be on the 29th, I believe, 22nd of May, right? And then we have already June already also fixed the date for that. So we are still going to be with Khin Ohmar for a while. And also I want to thank Mizima and Irrawaddy for being our media partners, which allow us to reach a much larger group than we would be able through our Facebook Live, because Mizima and Irrawaddy, they have a much broader public compared to us. So thank you to both our media partner, and thank you for the one who follow us on Zoom as well as on Facebook. Thank you again, and bye. Thank you, Khin Ohmar. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you all.